Get started on building this rocket. Alright, we've already showed you the rocket we're going to build, but we'll show it to you again. This is a general idea of what we're aiming for. This is not exactly what you're going to be building, but it's pretty close. It's built out of your everyday household materials, which you can see here. You know, craft dinner box for the fins. For the fins, I just used leftover model rocket fins from kits, but you can use cardboard. We'll show you that a little later on. For the engine mount, which is right in here, that's what we're going to make first. Alright, now in 10 Steps Safe Rocket Fun, we showed you the different sizes engines. So we're going to take the C size engine, which is this one here. We've already cut out our cardboard box, which is along there. And here we got the piece. Now you want to keep this facing down. Put your engine on like shown and start rolling it towards the other side. Basically just follow along what I'm doing here. And you just roll that nice and tight. Get it in there, and when it's about a centimeter overlapping, then you take your scissors or a hobby knife and you cut it. I got this the wrong direction, but that's alright. I'm going to just unroll that and we'll fit it in the right direction. Which you want this facing inwards. So, you know, just do as how I'm showing you here. And follow along. Get you to take a good look at this. Now this is kind of neat. Now how we're going to do this now. Get that nice and tight, roll that along, then you have it similar to that. Now what we're going to do is carefully take either white glue or wood glue, whichever you prefer. You can also use a hot glue gun, but you know, hot glue guns can be rather messy sometimes, so we'll just use wood glue. Well, this is white glue, but you can use wood glue. Wood glue is preferable with a project like this. Now, you don't mind, you're going to get your fingers all messy when you're doing this. It's a pretty messy, but when you're building rockets in this method from scratch, it can be pretty messy. But I mean, they're not going to look quite as good as what you can buy or what the professionals do, but they will perform pretty good. Take rubber bands, which is what I'm showing you here, and just sort of wrap it around the tube the whole length, just like how I'm doing it here. Wrap it all around, get the whole thing on there. You can put one or more elastics, but that will hold it. Now, you're going to cut these two ends off, so just push the tube, the engine, right to the edge like you see there, and then you have that little bit there. So we'll take our utility knife or hobby knife or whatever you want to call it. Of course, it would help if you change the blade, of course, or before you start, because these knives do dull pretty quick. There. And then what you do is when this, we're going to set this aside to dry, but when it dries, you're going to push this engine out to about 5 millimeters or so, and then you make a ring and stick it in there. So you take this leftover piece, wrap it up, glue it inside, just like that. So we'll show you how to do that. I'll show you that right now. You want to cut off some of this extra, so half a centimeter is efficient, because you don't want your ring too big. This is going to be for the ejection core. Cut this little extra off. It doesn't matter if it overlaps or not, as long as it stops the engine from going all the way through the tube. Just put a string of glue just like I'm showing you. Alright, and then what you do is you put that in there, wrap it up. Yeah, this part's a little bit tricky. It takes a bit of skill to do this, and then get it in there, just sort of rub it around until it's right into the inner wall of the tube there. And then just push that up, and then that's how you get that in there. Oh, just like that. Just wrap it around. Make sure it's nice and nice and good. Now, we got this engine in there backwards. It's a nozzle section, but it doesn't really matter when you're building the casing or the mount for your engine, because you know, preferably I'd rather you use a burnt out or used engine, but if you don't have one, a new one will be fine. Just be careful you don't get it messed. Anyway, here we have a engine mount already done. We don't have the engine ring in it, but that's okay because we have already showed you that stuff. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make the rings so that way you can go around the inside your body, because right now it's not going to fit in there. Like there's as you can see, it's just going to sit like that, and it's not going to work. Now, how we're going to do that is we're going to take your cardboard box, which here's a piece. Now in some cases you just cut little strips like I'm showing you here. Just a strip something like that. That's a couple millimeters. You don't need anything too big because those are going to make your rings. Which your anchor rings is what they're mainly called. Now, just cut a bunch of them. This is a little bit messy here, this part. Now, of course, if you don't mind getting your hands dirty, it's kind of like a paper mache sort of technique. It's a lot of fun. If you don't like doing it this way, you can use the hot glue gun, or you can just cut out the rings out of the cardboard, which you just make the circles on the tube. Just the same with the engine mount. You can do it that way. You can make your own rings, but there's different methods to doing it. Now, when you're doing it, keep the writing or the colored side in the gray side, which is the plain side or the cardboard looking side, and just wrap your ring around the tube like this. Just get it all, wrap it around. And you do that until you build up enough layers that it fits inside your tube, like so. Now, usually this part's really tricky to do. What you can do is, for the start, is for the first couple rings is little clips, and you keep doing that until you have something like this. These rings have already been done on both sides, so this is what you want to get. This here will fit inside your rocket. Anyway, and then just feel in there for the bump build up edge. If you're not sure which side you put your engine mount, so you can see in there one end smaller than the other. So you look in there, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the little mini ring inside the wall there. So, or simple thing is just draw an arrow pointing up, which is where your ejection charge in your, basically the up end is where you put the open area for your injection charge. Like, it'd be like this. This would be proper for you to see that. See, that'd be where your ejection charge, so you want that sticking up there. So you stick the engine up there, and then the up end goes in like that. Get that in there too far. And then you glue the rings in there with glue. You'd stick your glue all the way. Make sure you get enough glue in there. You put that in there, let that dry, set it aside. Alright, this is another type of rocket we've been working on. It's sort of a little different, but I showed you there earlier just how to put the motor mount. This time we're going to take the one we just did, and well, it's the same one really. We're going to glue her in there for real this time. Anyway, so let's get this in. Don't mind my bad sense of humor. Alright, gonna get some glue in there. See, trying to get that. Make sure you can put as much glue in you want. You want this thing to stay. You don't want this engine to go anywhere. So you want to make sure this thing's really glued in there well. So you glue in there inside first, and then you put your first ring in. And then you glue along the edges again. So we want to get this thing real good. We don't want any more. Yeah, this is a very messy part. Not as messy as making the nose come, but we'll get into that. So you want to get that in there. Just get that. You don't want to push it too far. And then what we'll do is we'll take the glue like that. Make sure you put another bead of glue all the way around. Just get it right in there. Fill that space in between the engine wall and the tube full of glue, and then put that upside down like that to dry, and set that off to the side somewhere. So yeah, you want to get that. So make sure that glue, because the glue will fall down. And then you put that aside, let that dry. And then the next step's going to be making our nose, which I'm just going to set this rocket aside, because this is a saran, or not a saran wrap tube, but a wrapping paper tube. These make great rockets. This is a project we're building, but it's not the project we're doing for this. Now, next step is going to be making a nose cone. Now, there's different methods to making a nose cone. These are toilet paper rolls. Well, you probably go through toilet paper often enough, and you throw out the rolls. Well, start saving these, because these are going to become this. Now, this is a nose cone we've already finished. We used paper to cover up to give it this point. Now, this is generally what we're aiming for. To do that, you can do it two ways. You can cut the cone straight up and down like so. So you do this for both the top and the bottom. Cut it like that. Open it up. You can roll this into a cone, but that's a little tricky to do. There's another method you can do. Now, what I usually do with these is you can also use these to join two rockets together just by rolling it like so and taking your cone and just do exactly as I'm showing you. Get that right in there. Don't glue it yet. Right now you're just taking measurements. You're going to need to change the size of it a little bit so you make it different size, like what I'm doing there. We'll glue that in a minute. Then you get it in there. Get it in there all the way. Get that. There we go. Yeah. Now that's good. Sometimes it can be a little tough to get out. Needle nose pliers work great for this part. It's always good to have these kind of tools on hand. Model rockets and needle nose pliers go hand in hand. Yeah, I find they work good in construction, these models. And then we're going to glue, just fill that whole strip up with glue, that whole overhang part. Get a ton of glue in there. Now usually this is tricky with hot glue, because hot glue can dry so fast. This stuff doesn't dry quite as fast. Get that in there one more time, make sure it's the right size. When it is, here's a little trick I like to do. Clothespins. Also, we configure a clothespin this method. Clothespins to hold it up work just like clamps if you don't have clamps. Even alligator clips do the same thing. Now, take a couple of elastics, which these are your best friend when building this sort of thing, and wrap them around. Just a couple. You don't want it too tight. You just want it just to hold it just like that, so that way the center stays glued. Set that aside till it dries, and then this is one that's already dry. This is the bottom piece of your nose cone. Fit that in there, put it in about halfway. Now we are going to make the nose cone, which this is a thinner piece of cardboard. You can use a Crafted or box for this, but we're going to use this. This is a meat pie box from a freezer pie or whatever that you want to call them, pizza box. Any frozen dinner sort of things. These are good boxes to use because they're thinner. Just set that up, cut it into like a little square like what you have. Remember, it's the same method as making the motor mount. This is a little trickier. This is going to require a bit of skill, because making these kind of noses, they're not going to be the perfect nose that you'd get every time, and it takes a lot of work getting them to be exactly what you want. This part's going to take some practice. I don't suspect you're going to get this perfect in this video. As you can see, it's a little bit of a trick to roll it up. But this could be fun. roll up into a cone, and it doesn't matter if it's a little big, but I mean, unroll it to about that. Just slobber the glue as much as you can, or as much as you want to use, all in there, and then roll her back up. Don't worry if your fingers get dirty. This glue will work just as fine. Like I said, you're not going to get a perfect point, but don't worry about that. We can fix that. There you go. Now, some methods you may want to use tape to hold it, or elastics. We'll use elastics. The tip of your nose, you want it to be pretty sturdy. Now, cardboard's never going to be perfect. This part can be a little bit tough to do as well. Like I said, building these models does take a fair bit of skill. I mean, once you practice doing it, and once you get good at it, you'll be able to make these things basically like they're going out of style. But that's generally what we're aiming for. It's not the exactly best shape, but when it dries, it will be like this. Now, I put tape on it to hide the overlapping hangers when you see there. Just, you can do that method. Also, now we're going to go like this and this. Now, here's an interesting little trick that I like to do. We're going to take some just plain paper, cut a 1-inch strip, or up the one part of it. Now, since paper is messy. Now, if you don't mind getting your fingers really dirty, this is the real messy part. You probably heard of the expression paper mache. Well, same technique with glue. Except we're not doing flour and water, we're using just glue. The paper mache technique is a lot. If you like doing this way, it's a lot of fun, but it's very messy. And you just rub it down. Just do exactly as I'm showing you here. Now, this is going to stick now. You got to be careful because this will dry pretty quickly. It's also, it can crumple up pretty easy, so you got to be careful. And then you just put this on your model, just like I'm showing you here, just like so. And then you wrap that around. Get it on there nice and good. You can cover the tape with this. You won't see that ugly tape. Then when you get down towards the end here, just rip it off. Any extra pieces, like I said, this stuff is extremely messy. But, oh well. We're rocketeers, we don't mind the mess. When you're building rockets, it's going to be a little dirty. Sometimes. And then you just smoothen that out, just rub your fingers along the coast. Careful, because it does dry pretty quickly. If it dries fast, apply more glue. And you keep doing that. You cover the whole thing a few times. This will also harden it, and it will look good. Then eventually, after the paper mache glue technique, you'll have something that kind of looks like this. Of course, we made another cone out of paper mache style glue, and it's pretty hard. It's hard. This stuff's pretty hard. Like, you can push on it. Like, I'm pushing on it pretty. It's solid. Now, since we've got that done, fitting these two pieces together, this is a bit of a trick here. I'm going to have to cut it to shape. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain in the behind. Alright, now, it's the same thing with the glue. I believe I cut this a little too small. Well. Now, if it's not going to fit, you can do paper mache around the sides, like this sort of thing. Just show you with a piece of cardboard, something like this. And you can do that and then fiddle around with your nose. Or, in this part, if you do have a hot glue gun, this is where the hot glue gun will come in very, very useful. As this is, like I said before, this step can be really tricky to do. Of course, you can even use tape. which is probably a good idea to do considering. There we go. We'll use tape. Glue these two pieces. Now this isn't going to be perfect, but this is just going to hold the two pieces together for a temporary solution. Now building the nose cone is going to take some work because you got to get it pointed and you got to get it looking right. Right now it's only, but it gives you general. Once you get these two pieces glued together and get them all macheed up, only come down to about there. Leave at least 1.5 inches where you do not paper mache, so that way you can stick that in there without it going through. And then it'll be like that. Now that's what you're aiming for. All right. Now we're gonna make some fins. This is just plain ordinary cardboard. Cardboard boxes, cardboard anything. You can even finish using your KD box. Just make a fin, like any shape you want, doesn't matter. 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, however many you want. You just take your fin, glue along the side like this. This is not quite as messy as the nose cone part. And then you just glue your first fin on. You don't have to really worry about doing any measurements at this point. Just glue that on, hold it for however long, you just let it dry. Or what you can do is you can tape it. Like what we did with this is we taped it around with the tape around these 3 fins. Hold on, now this will take a while. If you have a hot glue gun, just put a little tiny bead on it and it should be fine. Just like so. Just let that dry. When you're done there, that should, alright. And then after you get your nose cone, you put your shock cord, which the 10 steps to safe rocket fun shows you how to build a parachute and shock cord system. That's pretty easy. You can, a model kit will show you that. You can find a lot of resources on the internet that will show you how to do this. There's a ton of different ways, but this is how to, this shows you how to build a rocket like this one's per se, out of just basic household materials. And do they fly? Well, believe it or not, they fly just as well as the professionals. If not, maybe better. As long as you make sure you follow the safety precautions that you need to take and all that. But they work. And there you have it. Your very own model rocket. Built from everyday household products.